with HeenaAgrima. This is Agrima from the company, and they are a brand based in Jaipur, India, and it's centered around fashion, sustainability, and natural dyeing. I actually found them when I was working for the Morgan Factory, which is a sustainable company in Nashville, and I came across your guys' website and just thought everything that you guys create is so beautiful. So you and your co-owner, Heena do everything, and Heena's here too, but we just don't have the video on her. So I just wanted to know, what do you love most about natural dyeing, sustainability, and fashion?
Fashion was actually the first step which came to us, but natural dyeing is something which actually came through the way. So we were not so much aware about the fact that we would eventually end up in natural dyeing so intensively. But then, while exploring fashion and realizing all the problems that have been going around us so much, we eventually came down to the fact that we started looking for solutions. We started going back to our roots, and we started going back to the places where we actually wanted to, where people eventually started.
Yeah.
So that was the point when we actually began on the fact that yes, natural dyeing is something which was very famous, very intensively done, very much explored throughout, different crafts and traditions. So that was the point when we actually started indulging ourselves in it. And through the way, with the help of our mentors and with the help of the people around us, we came in contact with certain people who were doing this not just on the scale where they were doing it with their vernacular things, but they were doing it professionally. So that was the point when we actually started our hand in natural dyeing, and one after the other, step by step, this is where we have reached today, that we have been doing natural dyeing for the past 2 years now. And we have tried to explore as much as possible on our own basis initially, and then eventually when we were ready to get more into it in depth and more professionally, that was when we learned it professionally from two people. And yes, that's most of it, of how we ended up in natural dyeing. And
Okay.
fashion was always our forte, so fashion is something where we implemented this.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's amazing the colors that you guys come up with. Like, nature is just such a beautiful tool. And I know that so many of the dyes that manufacturers use today are so toxic, not only in food, in clothes, like getting in our skin is our biggest organ. So having those toxins get into our bloodstream is not good. So you guys are doing something that is, one, beautiful, and two, so good for the environment and our bodies, which I just think is so, so awesome. So you talked a little bit about your education, and you've been passionate about fashion for over a decade, it seems, from studying at Pearl Academy in Jaipur to Parsons in New York and Milan. So do you think that education helped you discover your passions, or it seems like you discover your passions first? And what would you say to people that want to get into fashion sustainability? Do you think education is crucial? What do you think about that?
I think Hina would be a better person to answer this question, because she has actually been the one who has been into this not just for a decade, but she was kind of born into this.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes,
Okay, let's hear
so
from Hina.
yeah.
So, hello, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm great. So, my father has been into the textile industry for the past, I think, 50 years now. And my mother is a fashion designer herself. And my father has been exporting to the States for the past, I think, 25 years or something like that. Before that, he was into block printing.
Mhm.
So when I was born, he was an exporter traveling to the States, and that's what I saw, that how the garment industry was working at that point. And my mother was not that supportive of export, and because of the exploitation that export has led to now from places like India and Bangladesh, and the type of clothes we end up, in the landfill, and the toxins that it creates. So that was my inspiration, actually, that I want to create something which does not end up in a landfill. Of course, education has played a massive role into it, because it teaches you how to implement it.
Right.
Even if you're born into it, even if you want to become something, that's something very different when you implement it. And especially when you talk about cloth, when it's holden, like when it's held in the hand, is something very different when you make it, when you cut it. And when you start cutting the cloth, you realize that the amount of uh, technicality and depth and emotion and the amount of work it has taken to weave one cloth, to knit one maybe sweater or something, and then when you have to cut it, I eventually realized that people have lost the essence of, celebrating the cloth.
Yeah.
And that's where I figured out that this is not something what I want to do. Like, in the ancient cultures of Japan and Africa, they never used to cut the cloth. They felt the cloth had a feeling. They had emotions attached to it. So that is how they implemented into zero waste pattern making, which is so big this
Wow.
like these days. But it was actually because of the fact that the cloth takes a lot of time to be made, and to cut it just like that. And when I come from a background where I used to see that thousands and thousands of pieces are being cut unnecessarily, which end up in the landfill, it's really sad, you know.
That is sad.
So
So they almost treat it like it's a sacred piece, and why cut it and discombobulate it all?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So how do you go about not cutting the fabric? You make one garment using the whole piece, almost.
um we have a idea behind it, that even if we cut the fabric, what we do is that we never throw out the leftover pieces,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
We have leftover pieces from, I think, 2 years back, when we started naturally dyeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I collected almost all the pieces from my projects that I did in Milan in my college.
I think also natural dyeing did give this whole
Idea.
essence an edge, because when we were naturally dyeing our own textiles, we wanted to keep them closer to us more and more. So even if we were left with the smallest of strands,
Swatches and stuff,
we wanted to secure
we
them.
wanted to keep them, because
That's
we
cool.
were always adding a layer of something beyond just a dye,
And the fact
because it
that, yeah, and the fact that you guys are keeping these scraps and you have this amazing gift of being able to color them all these different colors, it transforms it into a completely new piece. So it's not like, you're using the same. It's like you're literally like reinventing it into something completely new, giving it new life.
So what we usually do, we collect them together, and sometimes we attach them, sometimes we do patchwork. So we don't usually, like, we have actually developed our little own zero waste
Concept.
concept. I'm really sorry, my cat is like going
Oh,
crazy.
he's
Yeah.
just saying, hey, kitty cat. So exciting stuff for you guys. You guys have a new brand coming out next month, is it? And it's called, or is it the beginning of 2021?
So it's majorly the beginning of 2021, where it's going to be you can say you will be seeing a kind of transition in the brand. There's going to be a lot more products to it. There's going to be a lot more tangible things to it, more relatable things. But then, yeah, till that point, we are sticking to our values. We are sticking to the fact that we want to explore more on these things, so that eventually, when we come up with something tangible and something completely productive, it can go to the audience with the same thought that we're trying to, push ourselves through right now.
Okay, and so the brand is called Diaspora, and is it going to be a clothing brand? And is it going to have are people going to be able to purchase, items, or is it more a brand to inspire others, or both?
Okay, so it comes from both the ends. It is for sure definitely going to be a clothing brand. We will add up
It's
accessories
more
to
like a
it.
lifestyle
It's
brand.
it's more of a lifestyle brand.
Like, we don't want to provide people just with clothes. We want to provide them with the idea of a lifestyle where you wear such clothes and how you feel in them, where they come from, the holistic living. So it's like a whole thing in that, that even after you come after, like, a tiring day and you enter your dressing room, you don't want to throw them up or just, like, put them up together in a pile. Like, the
Value.
effort and value the nature has provided in that piece of cloth, and you would like, even if you're like dead from the day, from the heat, you would still be like there hanging your cloth because you don't want to spoil it. So that is the type of ideology we are working on, because we want to work on something which lasts long,
Yes.
which can stay as a heirloom to people, which they can pass on to their children.
That's so awesome. I think similar, I think about when you're eating and you're fueling and when you have fresh vegetables, it's either than just easier than just grabbing a quick snack of chips or something, you kind of take
Yeah.
the time to cut it, you know that you're nourishing your body, you feel good about it. It's almost like this nice little ritual knowing that I'm giving my body energy by feeding it fuel. And the same goes for sustainably and ethically made clothes. You put it on and you think, this is helping the environment around me. The person that made this, it didn't harm them in the process. They're not being exploited. It didn't exploit the fabric. It's not hurting the environment. So I think people, it's similar to when you eat healthy. You take care of it, you wash it, you don't just shove it down. If you take a while to create a salad, you're going to eat it slowly. And I think the same goes for this brand that you guys are creating. I think that's absolutely awesome.
That's actually the kind of essence we're trying to create into this.
Also, the part, because we're trying to like develop a place at our farm
Hmm.
where we can grow our own natural dyeing material, and we can promote the fact that how vernacular culture can also play a huge role in being in sustainability actually. And like that, we want to like, beyond clothing, what we want to promote is the vernacular farming that takes place, how it's important for people these days to know how to farm, and then they can grow their own cloth dye. They can just go in their garden, pluck some flowers, and they can
Yes.
dye their cloth.
Oh
they
my
don't have they don't have to go somewhere else to do that. You can do that with your family. And because of the whole, the biological problem that we are facing right now with COVID-19, I think it's really important that people know how to spend
Sustain.
and sustain a lifestyle within their house which is holistic, and
Right.
not just depending on the fact that I can order something from Amazon, or I can just go online and just type and somebody can just deliver it at home without no contact. Like this, you gain a huge contact by going in the nature. If you have children in the house, they can spend time in the nature. They can learn so many things which they might not learn when they are actually going out, which provides
absolutely.
them more mental space and freedom to do something where they don't really require materialistic properties to it.
I love that.
So,
Becoming more self-sufficient, kind of getting back to our roots,
yes.
circling back to how it used to be, and then fast food, fast fashion, all these things you can get in a click of a button, and you don't realize all the people, all the environments that you're exploiting. I love that you're not only creating a brand, but empowering people with tools that are so useful, especially when you're in something like a pandemic and say shipping and things get closed off because they don't want to bring the virus or something to a different state. And also the emissions, even when we're not in a pandemic, the emissions to ship from China, ship from these places, it,
Right.
It's
it's so
huge.
much carbon.
extreme. Yes.
It's really, really bad. That's why we really try to support vernacularism as much as we can.
Hmm.
And we also try to, like, till today, we have not purchased something which comes online. Everything that we've purchased for our brand is, when we were in Milan, it was from Milan.
Hmm.
And when we are in Jaipur, it's from Jaipur. We've not like been like, I'm going to order like cheaper fabric from China, and
Mm-hmm.
it
It's
would
not
be
something which is coming
shipped
from miles
miles
and
and
miles
miles
away.
away. Not even in India, we don't get it shipped.
Yeah.
We
It's
just
so
find,
it's
yeah.
so tempting because it's so cheap. What would you say for people that it's like it's hard because they're trying to budget and they don't want to, spend a fortune, but they want to support local, and they're trying not to do the wholesale from China and buy everything cheap. What would you say for someone? I know I like thrift shopping, but I don't know if you guys have any other tips or tricks, for just your average person that's not in the fashion industry.
People who are trying to go local, people who are trying to avoid like, spending too much into this. Firstly, I think thrifting and second hand shopping is
Yeah. Secondhand
so
clothing.
good. Like, it's been almost going to be for me 3 years
Hmm.
since I've been to a fast fashion store. And in the past 2 years, all the things that I purchased for myself to wear are secondhand clothing. I
And
did not buy anything from, I think, H&M,
also,
Mango.
also the fact that whenever we used to do that, so it was a very common practice for us, you can say, when we were in Milan, because there were a lot of vintage shops. So we always used to go there. But the whole concept took us to the fact that whatever we picked from there, it actually came with that value where it stood in its
Also,
complete
whatever we
timelessness
bought from
direction.
these places were always like of use.
Yes.
I never bought anything from this place out of an impulse, because I was already like that. I don't want to go and, find a heap of clothes in my house, which
Yeah,
I'm already trying to avoid.
And those were the pieces that actually came
Came
out
out
as the
as
statement pieces, you can say,
yeah,
because
also the most used pieces that I've ever had.
yeah.
Like, they were already vintage, and I started wearing them. So I think they are like I don't know, 50, 60 years old already. Also, the fact that people were trying to invest into things, and they don't, like, they ultimately end up purchasing from China. But then the thing is that if you want to go local, you need to find local suppliers as well.
yeah. That's
And
what you touched on impulse, and that is such a root issue. We have alcohol addiction, we have drug addiction, but so many people don't realize that shopping is an addiction, and going and buying this fast fashion that you wear one week and then it disintegrates in the wash and you throw away, and then it's on to the next, and it fills that void, and you're not
and
really buying it because you love the piece. You're buying it to like fill this emptiness in your heart. So there almost has to be um you know a new outlook on how we spend our money and how we shop more
also,
intentionally.
everyone is trying very hard all the time to save money. And I mean, most of the people do that. Unless you're like really rich, you end up saving money because you have to, because you need to do that.
Hmm.
But the thing is that when we go and do fast fashion shopping, you ultimately end up in a loop of, spending at least 30 to $40 every time you go there. And
So
most
maybe
probably
more.
the habit of majority of the people that I've noticed is that they will ultimately end up going there every week, because that's how fast fashion works these days. They have a new collection every week in the store. You
They grow
ultimately
my
end up
friends usually.
spending more money than you would spend on a
One good
one
piece
good
Yeah,
piece of
that
cloth.
could,
that you
that would last forever, right?
That might actually last forever, like you would pass on to generations. It could become something your children's children could wear. Because I have these clothes from my grandma, and they're still surviving like really well.
It's funny how
So
back in the day they made clothes so much more well. Like my mom has some clothes and I'm like, how do you eat this coat, these jeans, everything, it was slower back then. We didn't have all the I don't know, I guess technology to just kind of pump everything out cheaply. I feel like the products back then were better, and it seems like you guys, are going to be on the pioneers for kind of bringing that back.
I think when we talk about that, we actually jump back to the same point which we started with, that
but
earlier people used to value these
no,
things. So
it's not
they,
just about value. The thing is that it wasn't synthesized so much.
it wasn't
The power of
synthesized
nature was so
strong.
no, the power was of nature was so well incorporated between the objects and the humans, that the reason why nature exists is because, I mean, we come from nature.
Right.
So we know that if we are coming from that part of life, if that is what is giving us life,
Hmm.
it's giving us food, it's giving us air, it's giving us everything that we need, that we make till today.
Hmm.
But we forget that the basic root of a tree is stronger than most of the buildings that are being made today.
Absolutely.
Wow, so
we we keep we keep forgetting the part where we think that we are more powerful than nature.
Yep. So
Which is
scientists to, engineers and stuff, it's nature is the ultimate creation. You can get
yeah,
any artist, you can get any doctor, any scientist, and there are
I
some
mean,
genius
really, the
people.
and
inspiration for
most
everything
and
comes
this
from
is why
nature.
the reason
Yeah.
everything has become like a terrible option right now, from plastic bags to fast fashion to the new set of clothing like rayon, nylon, which is coming up more and more and more and more, because the man is adding up the layers. Like, first it was like taking from nature, that was one layer. The man used to just make it and wear it, so there
Yeah.
was no layer, you were wearing nature. Then the man was like, okay, fine. Like, not man, the human was like, okay, so I'm going to add another layer to it, I'm going to add another layer to it, and it started synthesizing so much that we drifted it apart from nature. So if you talk about plastic, the problem with plastic is that it was actually made
To
so
reduce
the
the
pressure
pressure
from
on
nature,
on the environment.
but
That
the
Oh, wait, it was
but
used to what?
To reduce the pressure on the environment, because
Oh, that's what
the
plastic was?
yes,
Oh,
so
wow.
plastic
I didn't realize
eventually,
it had like a positive intention behind it. I thought it was just to create little baggies and stuff.
no, it
no,
was actually the fact that so Napoleon was the first person who came up with the fact that we cannot carry so much of glass in the ship while
because
we
it was
go
very
for war.
bulky.
So they made tin, and to make a lot of tin, like in the campable soup cans and everything like that,
Mm-hmm.
to make all of that they need a lot of resource, which took a lot of money. And of course it comes from nature, and takes a lot of power and resources. So they ultimately came up with something called bucklite. That was the first type of plastic that was ever invented.
Wow.
Eventually,
Mhm.
it was bucklite was not that bad, it was not a
it,
bad plastic.
it wasn't extremely synthesized
It
as
was a
well.
bioplastic, you
Yeah.
can say.
Okay.
Now there is no bucklite that exists, there's nobody making it.
What is your
And what
um what is your guys' oh sorry, you can go on.
Mhm.
and later on what happened was that people started, if you go on a molecular level of plastic, even if one molecule differs from another molecule in that particular type of plastic, when you see the containers, you see a triangle in which there is a number like 5,
Oh,
sometimes there's
It's
three,
from 1 to 7.
1 to 7. Okay. And I think five being the most recycled and easily recycled one. And all of them have different molecular properties. So even if one molecule from another differs, you cannot recycle it.
Wow,
And
that's fascinating.
that is the problem of synthesized
So I
material
think that's the trap that we've created for
for
our own,
ourselves.
and now we're stuck into it
And
because
if they could create plastics which are equal all around the world, people would actually have a lot of profit from plastic.
yeah, because then it can go
On
on
and
in the
on.
cycle over and over
Because
again.
Because
it's
one little molecule is different, it kind of is like no match. There's no match.
yeah, and
Exactly.
honestly, when people say that, okay, this plastic can be recycled and it's a biodegradable plastic, trust me, even biodegradable plastic takes a lot of time to degrade first.
Wow.
Second, when they talk about that this can be recycled, it's a trap.
So
Yeah.
It's not.
it's almost like greenwashing. Would you say that's kind of like greenwashing?
Yeah, kind of,
It is.
because the fact that when it goes to the recycling, firstly, all plastics are recycled by hand,
Mm.
and if it's not getting recycled by hand, the machines that are used for
Sorting.
recycling and sorting the plastic, most of them cannot identify what is a black plastic.
Wow.
So all the black plastic that we purchase is actually never recycled.
It's all going to the dumps.
Oh
It
my.
has to.
Okay, so
And
what would you guys say about hemp? I've heard good things about hemp. Is that a possibility to take over instead of plastic? What are your guys' thoughts? Um,
hemp is a very powerful, you can say it's a very good
Material.
material.
Mm-hmm.
But my only thing in this is that I really like hemp because when you grow hemp in the soil, it actually gives back to the soil.
Yeah.
It's not like an indigo plant. Like if you grow indigo,
It's going to,
it's going to
suck up
exploit
the
the soil,
nutrients.
and for 3 years after you've planted indigo, from that to 3 years after it's dead, you cannot plant food.
oh my
So
gosh.
that land goes completely, devastated, like dead. But with hemp, it's like it gives more nutrition back to the soil.
That's
It roots the soil back, like into the place. And the roots that go within, it actually, like, turns the soil on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So hemp is like a really good thing to grow. Also, the material is like really strong. But my only perspective towards this is that nothing in this world can replace something, because everything should have a part. And till a point,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
nothing should be exploited to a level that everyone in the world should have hemp.
Right.
So if my place, for example, is really good in bamboo, I should go for something which is produced by bamboo.
Like a
And if,
native plant to the
yeah,
environment.
Going native, going
yeah,
vernacular,
because when we disturb the cycle of the plants and of the botanical species as well, they don't grow as strong as they're supposed to grow in the other climates that we provide
because
them.
of course they're not well adjusted to the new
New
environment
environment.
where they were just forced to be grown.
So they
That makes
eventually.
I mean, like if I moved to Antarctica, I'd probably freeze to death. Just polar bears
Exactly.
thrive there. It's like it's just nature. Nature's kind of created things to work in different environments.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
also for the people, like it's very common in humans that people who are living close to the coastal areas, their bodies, their skin types, their, every particular part of their body is very much adapted to that kind
Also,
of environment.
the reason why I think I mean humans are so special is that they can walk and they can invent.
Express.
No, not that in that sense. They can walk and they can invent things where they can fly, and they can fly to a level where the thing that they're flying it does not get tired.
Mm-hmm.
And humans have a tendency to compare their nature to the nature that is in the nature. You know,
Mm.
the trees cannot walk. An animal cannot go from Africa to India. a bird that lives in Africa will not come to maybe Amazon, you know. The
Yeah.
reason why they cannot do that is because they are not provided with their that power. They are not supposed to have that much power because they belong to that place.
Wow. Yeah.
Humans have a lot of the reason why a human should feel special that it's human because they have the ability to do that, and they should understand that if I can do it, it does not mean everyone can do it, because not everything in the world is created equally.
Yeah.
So maybe if we are that intelligent, then we should portray that somehow, that even if I can travel, because I have traveled from India to Milan to New York to Australia, and all I've figured out is that I cannot bring the plants that are growing there back at my home because they cannot survive. The reason why I have this intelligence is because I can, but they cannot. And they should not be,
Yeah.
Forced.
forced.
I love the holistic view. You know, you guys are focused on fashion, but you really bring in nature and honestly these universal life laws. And I think sometimes we get so into the production and the end goal of a brand. I think a lot of people lose sight of that. And I love how grounded you guys are in um just these, yeah, universal laws of being one with nature. And you guys are so insightful. And I hate that we have to wrap this up soon, but I had a few more questions that I wanted to ask you. So, you know, being so innovative as you guys are, you know, there's not a lot of, if any, brands that are doing what you guys are doing. I wanted to know what adversity have you guys faced and how have you guys gotten through it? Like what
So,
struggles, what obstacles?
I mean, so even till now that we are when okay, so I am the person who's going to talk more tangibly. So whenever we are trying to frame up a collection, or maybe you can say whenever we are trying to come up with something which is going to be completely tangible, there are a multiple prospects that we have to look into. So there's a whole thought of things going in the back, that okay, if will this thing go along with the kind of thought that we're trying to portray, or will it work with how the concept that we're trying to bring ahead. So majorly the kind of struggles that we face through the process are such that we want to put all those values together that we just spoke about, but then they have to be, brought together in the way that we just give it across to them, to our customer, with the same thought that we have in our minds. So that is the collection of all those things together to come as one, is you can say the major difficulty that comes through our way. Also the fact that,
That everything needs attention.
yeah, it's not just one prospect that we
Yeah.
want to give you, but then all the things equally require your
Like
complete
from the
attention.
fact when we sketch, from the part when we start developing the inspiration, when we start stitching, when we
So many moving
start
parts.
like
Exactly.
when we go find cloth or something like that, we look for the colors that we want to do. Everything has so much of detail, and it's a good thing that it has a detail, but ultimately we end up with like a lot of struggle, because the type of color that we use, we have to study that color because it comes from botany. The type of, the natural chemicals that we use, like iron and alum, and there are many more natural chemicals than just iron and alum. So you have to study the compositions and all of that just to achieve the dye.
Exactly.
And then what we have to do over it, then we have to dye the thread. So it's like a really long
It's a
procedure,
very intensive
intense
process, which
process.
is not just concerned with the field of fashion that we're actually catering to the market or want to cater to the market, but then in all the prospects of how the product is coming from zero to the final thing.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot, and you guys are gonna, I think you guys are gonna grow. I think you guys are gonna need to hire more people to help you out, and hopefully, you know, like-minded people with the same heart and vision too. I think that, you know, would help with all that you guys are doing under your brand. Well, guys, we're about to get kicked off of Zoom because there's a 40-minute time limit. But it was so nice to talk to you, and I can't wait to see your brand. And maybe we can follow up after in a few months, and see all about it. And I'd love for you guys to tell the followers and viewers your guys' social media or where they can find you.
So you can find us on our website firstly, that's www.heenaagrima.com. Also, you can go on Instagram, which is the most updated because Heena is always on it. So Instagram goes by the name HeenaAgrima again. And also our Facebook page goes by the same name. So you just type out HeenaAgrima, no spaces, and you'll find us.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the visuals you guys have for the DS4 and the captions. Oh, I'm just so excited. It's an awesome vision you guys have, and I can't wait to watch the journey of it bloom. And thank you for all the work that you guys do for the environment, for people, for fashion, and truly being, pioneers in this sustainable fashion movement. So I appreciate your guys' time, HeenaAgrima, and I hope to talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Same
Thank you.
here.
Same here.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.